All right, with us we have Josh Drean and Deborah Piscione, and they are with the Work3 Institute.
It's great to be here. I know it's Friday afternoon after 3 days of a conference, but while everybody has been enjoying looking at all the AR, VR, interoperability technologies, my co-author and I and co-founder of Work3 Institute, Josh Drean, and I like to think about work. We're passionate about democratizing work. And we had a heck of an opportunity, and the pendulum was starting to swing the other way during COVID, and now it seems it's right back working towards the employer having all the power. So how do we take all this extraordinary technologies that are coming our way, recognizing that there's a youthquake coming, which is a throwback to a term in the 1960s, talking about the youth who just had a tremendous effect and helping the culture shift. And now we're at this really important intersection as we think about work. So we actually think the traditional structure of work is going to be dead, and workers, or those contributors or content providers, are going to be a part of the anything economy. It's a term that Josh came up with that I'm quite just amused by, because if anything, the creator economy taught us we can make a living outside of the traditional structures of work. So Josh and I are writing a book together, tentatively called Employment is Dead: How Web3 Technologies Are going to Drastically Alter Our Relationship with Work. And so we're going to be thinking about technologies like generative AI and how is that going to impact the labor market? What is that shift going to be? What do employers need to think about? What do chief strategy officers need to think about? And what's this mindset shift that we're going to drop or jettison all the traditional trappings of an employment system that dates back to the early 20th century? Technology has evolved greatly, and now work needs to follow suit. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce my co-author Josh Drean and my co-founder of the Work3 Institute. And we're gonna have a little bit of a back and forth discussion and then open it up to the floor to questions. So we thank you for being here. Josh?
My wonderful co-founder and co-author, Deborah Piscione, has been doing a lot of work in the innovation, risk-taking space. And so it's just an honor and a privilege to work side by side with her on this book, on our organization. And she queued it up really well. I mean, you don't have to look very hard to see that employment is outdated. Corporations are struggling right now to keep up with the ever-evolving needs of employees. And it's creating this disengagement epidemic. If you look at the stats, Gallup just published their latest global workforce trends, and it shows that only 15% of employees in the global workforce are engaged. That means that a staggering 85% of employees are either not engaged or actively disengaged. And the big problem with that is that it's extremely expensive. It's estimated that a disengaged employee in the workplace costs about 34% of their annual salary. If they leave their job, that costs the company 50 to 60% of their annual salary, which if you do the math, and Gallup has done this for us, that costs $7.8 trillion in lost productivity globally. That's a huge waste of money because employees are not happy. And what we're seeing is two camps. The first camp is, well, I'm the boss and the economy isn't great, so RTO, everyone has to come back to the office. Or you have to do it my way because that's just how it is. Employees are kind of scaling back. They don't have as many options, seemingly don't have as many options, and so they stay at work and they stay disengaged. Why do you think quiet quitting is such a poignant term right now? It's because employees have nowhere to go, so they just sit down and they disengage and that's extremely expensive. So the popular solution right now with a lot of forward-thinking HR departments is employee experience design, or let's find out what our employees are feeling, what they need, and try and give it to them. I know this sounds very simple, but it's fairly revolutionary for some organizations that are still kind of stuck in what Deborah mentioned is the Industrial Revolution, this kind of Taylorism, task-based, contractual version of work. And so employee experience design comes in where we're journey mapping, or we are building personas so that we can better understand our employees. There are plenty of employee engagement platforms out there that will do surveys, and they will listen to employees, and then you can implement that feedback. So it creates this continuous feedback loop. There's a lot of really cool and amazing HR tech out there, and actually we're evolving the term right now to work tech. It's not just HR department who's in charge of compliance. Their job now is how do we design experiences for employees that matter, that they want to be there, and that's employee experience design. However, the premise of our book is that employee experience design will fail for two reasons. The first is even if we do employee experience design perfectly at the organization, there are still pains that employees will feel because of the structure of work. Sure, you've done all the right things to make your employees happy, but they still have to have a boss. They don't really like that. They still have a 9-to-5 job. They might have to come into the office when they want a more customized version of work, or this hierarchy of a central group of decision makers who tell me exactly what I need to do. I just need to go implement it, which means innovation and creativity is swept aside. The second reason why it's not going to work is because there are emerging technologies right now, which you have seen at this conference, whether it's the metaverse, VR, XR, Web3, decentralized work. There are technologies that are emerging faster than corporations can adjust. And because of that, we will see a major shift in the power dynamics of I'm the employer, I have the power, contractually you're obligated to do exactly what I say, to I'm the employee and I just have to do what you say and don't ask questions or else someone else will take my job. There will be a moment where employees prefer these new technologies that will allow them to work how and when and where they want for about the same amount of benefit that they're having at employment. There's going to be a moment where traditional employment no longer makes sense. And it already doesn't make sense, and companies are adjusting. If you look at the stats on major organizations like Walmart and Siemens, and even like retailers, frontline employees at McDonald's, you'll see that their workforce is no longer a majority full-time employees. They leverage maybe part-time employees because it makes more sense. They leverage freelancers and contractors. They will bring in third-party advisory services, and all of this makes up not employment, but a workforce ecosystem that is very different. So immediately, employee experience, the term is outdated itself because it's workforce experience. It's about how are our people experiencing work. And that's really exciting, and those are some great signals right now. And that's not the end, though. We're still pushing in to some really cool territory. Let me just give you a few examples. When you go to an HR tech conference, and we just came back from Unleash HR, you'll see plenty of tools out there that are starting to build a skills taxonomy within organizations. It's essentially mapping out every single skill that your workforce has and try and mapping them to projects that they like to do because that's their skill, because that's where they want to develop into. And as you see companies start to tighten their workforce a little bit, you're seeing really cool ways of them generating new value within the organization because of the skills taxonomy. You're also seeing a talent marketplace. There are companies like Gloat and Fuel 50 who are making huge waves because they come in and they use AI and machine learning and a lot of these technologies to start to map out tiger teams. Like, let's break down these silos that we see in organizations. Let's map individuals who have like-minded passions, like-minded skills, and leverage that for the value of the organization. And while all of this is really cool, it's happening internally with organizations. It's happening on a company-to-company basis. There is nothing stopping us from saying, Well, what about the global talent marketplace? What about a global taxonomy? We can leverage this power of decentralized work, of Web3, to design new ways of work that allow you to go outside of a traditional organization, start to work with, we call it a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. It's very similar to a company, but now it's not. You are 100% obligated to work within an organization. You have to do X, Y, Z, and the pains of employees tend to look like, I am doing 90% of what I don't like at this organization just to get to that 10% that I love. Well, what if I did the 10% for that organization and then worked maybe 10 to 30% for another organization, and now you can start to see this ability to mix and match several streams of income, working for several DAOs at a time. All of this is based potentially on blockchain, which allows for a more decentralized version. I know I keep using the word decentralized. That's simply saying you don't need a centralized group of decision makers. You're outsourcing that to the individuals who are there working because they're passionate about what they care about. And so me and Deborah are very passionate about this because we believe that the power is with the contributor. It's with the worker. It's with the quote unquote employee. These new decentralized systems of work will allow for greater ownership, agency, and autonomy for these workers. Ownership meaning the projects that you are a part of, you get to own most, if not all, of the value that you're generating. No longer is a job attractive because we'll give you equity that vests over 2 to 3 years, and it's just an arbitrary number. It's like, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You get a piece of the pie. And that is exciting because now all of a sudden, employees are shareholders in these organizations. Agency, because now you get the agency to create how you want, when you want, from wherever you want in the world, instead of having to take that cadence from the centralized decision makers who may know what's best for the company, but they don't necessarily know what's best for you and your passions and what you love. And so you get to reclaim that. And finally, flexibility. You get to work when you want. I mean, take a look at what happened in the consumer world with Uber. Uber's great because now I, pull up the app, start driving. I don't have a boss. I can work when I want. I can go pick up the kids. No one's gonna get mad at that, and I can earn as much or as little as I want. And this is an overgeneralization. We're not getting into the weeds of the problems there, but what if we take that same model and we apply it to skills, capabilities, talent? That's the future. And so I just want to simply say that we have a long way to go. I know that there was this whole, the metaverse is going to change everything. Oh, Mark Zuckerberg couldn't deliver, so the metaverse is dead. The pendulum, as Deborah said, is swinging, and we are focused on the case studies. We're focused on the companies who are generating ROI. And I believe that Web3 holds the key to unlock the creativity, the productivity, the passions of individuals and teams. It solves the problems of employees who are stuck in a system that no longer works for us. The industrial age was great. We've officially moved out of it. We now need structures and systems that allow us to move with agility, with speed, to maximize productivity. We're already seeing this happen in the gaming world. We'll continue to see it take off as more and more DAOs come along, as more and more employees realize, I want something else with my life. And so I say this again, work is outdated. Technology is coming that will allow employees to do work in the way that they see fit, and is causing a revolution that is really exciting because now we bring creativity, inclusivity, productivity back into the workplace. And with that, I say thank you very much. We have 11 minutes here, so I'm going to bring Deborah back on. We're going to do a little Q&A. There's a microphone here in the middle, or it's an intimate enough audience here if you want to just shout it out. But Johnny, I saw that. Hello? Oh, it's I got a piece of tape on it. So only you would notice something like that. Do you want to sit? Let me grab some chairs here while you...
No, I'm good. I'm good. Go ahead, sir.
So a couple of things. One is just Ramon already of WV, you told me 30 years ago that the technology existed for me to live in Paris and work in Morgantown, West Virginia, but the social mores had not arrived to support that. And I think that's a lot of what we saw over the last couple of years. you know, when I was first told that I would not be permitted to waste 15 hours a week commuting into San Francisco, I first thought that's the issue is what's going to happen after that. And I realized it's not worth, there's a huge cost to my 15 hours. My employer paid part of that because he was hired, you know, he had buses to ship me in and out. As Farhad Manjoo and Paul Krugman recently pointed out, there were 60 million hours of time stolen from employees that they gained back by not having to commute. But I think the essential thing is the cost. Return to the office is kind of like in the old days of factory owner going out and saying, I'm not going to offshore this factory to China because I want to be able to walk out and see people working. And I think a lot of what's going on is managers want to walk out and see people working, or at least see them present even if they're not necessarily working. Maybe they're watching cat videos. But the cost structure will force them to allow people to work remotely.
So we were just having this conversation today, and the premise, we can't give too much away about our book. It comes out next year, next fall. It's being published by Harvard Business Review. But it's really about, we are at a place now that we could potentially even take out managers due to the technologies that are coming, right? And I don't think our job right now at Work3 Institute is helping traditional incumbent companies make that transition. How do you step on the bridge towards Web3 and understanding Generation Z that's coming up and really sees the world quite differently in addition to the currency of how they're rewarded for the work they do. But it is about this mindset shift that has to occur, that work should be based on productivity and passion and not someone sitting in a chair, you know, where a manager can micromanage and oversee. So I think the shakeup, the big shakeup, is really generative AI and the future of the labor market and the unknowns that are going to cause employers to finally think about what jobs are we going to eliminate? Like, this is what's going to be the turning point or the tipping point, if you will. So I don't know if you have anything else, Josh,
I think that's great, yeah.
that you want to add.
Yeah.
But this is WAGMI, right? We're all going to make it. So as you look at these great technologies in these expos and all the excitement, there is another component here that we all need to be a part of to make this shift together. And we do see it's coming, and the big play will be generative AI and the future of the labor market and where employers have to shift dramatically as they think about moving forward in headcount and P&L overall.
Next question, please. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Cadet CUNY, and I have a question about what you're seeing in terms of the motivation for this more kind of what I see as an independent model. And when you say that people want to feel more engaged, and yeah, what research do you have to show that people are going to actually have that level of self-motivation? That I guess personally, as someone who ran my own studio and loves the entrepreneurial spirit of that, and then just worked at Meta for 3 years, just got laid off last week, and am contemplating, do I want to go back under a big umbrella like that and not have that power, and you know, issues I saw with that managerial level and, you know, the efforts they're making to flatten that, which I think is great. But I also saw that a lot of people wanted to be led and a lot of people wanted to be told what to do. So I'd love for you to speak to that.
That's a great point. Do you want to?
You
We just
start.
had this conversation. So my passion is around innovation, but it's people innovate, not products, right? And what that means is every person in every corner of the company should have the ability to bring forth new ideas. And part of that structure is, yes, having a formal process where people can bring forth new ideas in a trusted environment, but an inverted organization or moving towards a flat organization. But 80% of employees should be self-motivated because they're spending time on passions, and 90% of what they want to do day to day, 20% still need to be led. And that's just the reality. I think there's a lot of underestimation about Gen Z. We always comment the next generation, they're lazy, they don't, but that's not it at all. It's really tapping into how they think, how they spend time. You know, video games are not a waste of time. It's a whole different level of productivity, reward, motivation that employers need to now tap into.
Yeah, Cadet, and I love that because in theory it sounds great because 100% of everyone is motivated to do what they love. Not true. Actually, there's a lot of articles out there that will talk about how disengagement is good for certain individuals and good for certain companies because some people do just want to do their job, work-life balance, be done with it, and that's fine. What worries us is that there is so much more of the, I have passions, I have ideas, I have creativities, and they're squashed within the organization because they don't have an outlet or because of the hierarchical structure, they never get a chance to shine. And so we have the drudgery of work, jumping from job to job when you know what you love to do and you want to do more of it, but there's no vehicle for that. So such a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to follow up. I think you're the perfect example, right, of the really bright individual who came out of the big company like a Meta. You now can jump ship, raise venture capital, build out the next thing if that's what you want to do. And this is where we think traction will start to occur in this shift of how people are going to work in the future of Work3. Another question?
Hi, I'm Johnny Rodriguez, Director of Innovation at Fresh Consulting. We work with a lot of businesses that are looking into this slightly, but they're a little hesitant about where work will shift and how things will shift. So love the topic. I think the question I have is, could you give any examples or case studies of organizations or companies that have started to adopt Web3 technologies or these alternative work methods that you're talking about? And what challenges have they faced and what are they doing to overcome those things?
Before I give a specific example, let's look at the challenges that we're faced with, right? A DAO works because of a smart contract. And a smart contract is very difficult to write that is impervious because we're still trying to figure it out. So there's a company called Mutual Knowledge that is specifically about how do we build menu options out for a smart contract, and then DAOs can like pick and choose. So does the DAO model, a decentralized autonomous organization that sits on the blockchain, that is potentially, they compensate their workers using cryptocurrency, does that work? Well, we saw like it hasn't quite yet taken off. Does that mean that the technology doesn't work? No, and we're seeing some really cool opportunities. I would say like a perfect example, and we're seeing pockets of this, but like these platforms around freelancers, like come and work on your own, you can apply for projects, you can do it your way. That's a pretty traditional way of thinking about it. It's still just a hustle to get on Upwork, to find projects, to get the reviews up, to finally start doing it the way that you love. These technologies will allow a way for us to see on, say a crypto wallet. Your crypto wallet now, it has a taxonomy of your skills. It has your credibility and your credentials. It's no longer a resume that you slide over and employers are just hoping that you're honest. And the age-old meme of first day on the job, you lied to me about your resume. And you're like, well, you lied to me about the job position. This technology will help us kind of solve some of those. And so that's what we're starting to see take off.
And I think a lot of it is, as I mentioned earlier, generative AI has really ignited the fire under a lot of these corporations. Right now, we're seeing more individuals make decisions that they're not going to work in the company anymore, that there are opportunities to work with an Upwork or Fuel 50 or among others, driven by, you know, people's personal choices and decisions. We were interviewing somebody, well, Josh was just a couple weeks ago, about an individual whose child was 3 years old and going through cancer treatment There was no flexibility through the company, so he left and is now making even more money through Upwork. So it may take individuals that is going to help make that shift, and losing great talent, like the person in the back of the room coming out of Meta, who's going to be able to raise venture capital and build from there overall.
Great question. Thank you, Johnny. We are 10 seconds away from finishing here, so we just want to say thank you so much for joining us. Please follow us at work3.me. There's plenty of resources there for you. We are going to stick around afterwards to answer any questions just out here in the lobby if you're interested. But obviously, we're really passionate about this, and hopefully we find some like-minded individuals who are interested in continuing the conversation. So
Thank you so much.